Hi, I'm Ahava. Today I'm joined by my friend Andy Lyons, Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Andy recently led a major brand relaunch and website redesign focused on making healthcare more accessible, intuitive, and patient-centered. Yay! I'm excited to hear what goes into transforming a healthcare brand in today's digital-first world. Andy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Ahava. It's my honor.
So, what are you most excited about in healthcare marketing today?
I love that after 6 years, we had not had a brand campaign, and we were doing like really targeted, clever, behind the scenes digital marketing, but we had not been out with a brand campaign in several years, and we're out. We're out digitally and we're out in traditional senses. I love driving to work and seeing a bus wrapped with the Roper St. Francis Healthcare campaign for a life lived here. I like the billboards. I like hearing us on a podcast. I think it's awesome. We serve patients in such a competitive landscape, and everybody's out there. And I feel like a great campaign like this that tells your story is not just effective in reaching new patients, which there's tons of people that live in the Charleston area who
Yeah.
don't know what a Roper St. Francis Healthcare is, but it's like a rallying cry for our own teammates and physicians. And it's like a fist punch into the air, like, let's go. And
Yes.
so I'm thrilled with it.
That's fantastic. So you said that it's been 6 years since you
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
If you could tell me like two business case reasons
Yeah.
besides the 6 years thing, which is clearly
Yeah.
important because then a lot of things have happened in 6 years. What were other like the two major business case reasons for doing it?
The tens of thousands of people that have moved to the Low Country, Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester counties in South Carolina since we did our last brand campaign, who we're trying to reach with a new mover campaign, but we need to tell them the story. And this competitive landscape of really good healthcare systems that are also in the field, but they don't have our story of serving patients for nearly 200 years,
Wow.
of being the community-based, mission-based hospital that actually started on Trad Street on the peninsula of Charleston, where a bunch of doctors got together on Christmas Eve that long ago to figure out how to solve and cure cholera and yellow fever. And
Wow.
so we are really trying to, For a Life Lived Here is trying to tell the story of our own patients who have received care and continue to live and love this area. And it's just dripping with the geography, like a fishing scene or a dinner table scene. It looks like the coast. There's a couple walking on the beach. It looks like the Low Country. And
Yeah.
if it feels authentic to Roper St. Francis Healthcare, it's because it's us. It's our patients and our teammates in the marketing, right? This is
Right.
no stock. This
Right.
is all our folks. So, yeah.
So I'm curious about this because a lot of times when we look at campaigns across the country and
Yeah.
we're comparing hospitals and even other healthcare companies, we're looking at what they're choosing to put out into the marketplace. And so many of the campaigns feel like we're going to push our technology. We're going to push, our cyber knife and our robotic surgery and the
Yeah.
fact that we're using AI. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
really went in the completely opposite direction of like, let's focus on humans. Let's focus on living in Charleston. Let's focus on how we've contributed to this community. Where did you get the bravery to do that?
Well, I had to get some buy-in from my fellow senior leaders too, and I described brands as the hub and service line as the spokes. And I said we hadn't been out there, for a few years. So let's talk about our brand. Let's tell our story. Let's show our patients living after the care they received. And then in 2027, that same brand colors and feel and the slogan, the look, the vibe, the patients will then transform into service line campaigns, right? Where there's a stronger call to action, where there's specific technology and things that we do particularly well, quality wise. But we just had to get out and tell our
Yeah.
story.
So that's interesting because you were talking about how at first you were a journalist, and
Yes.
I was talking about it. Our producer Eva was talking about it, and I think a lot of people, who are journalists, were attracted to this kind of work. And you talked about being mission driven and being in comms.
Right.
What do you think all three of the major parts, the touchstones of your career,
Mm.
what do they all have in common, and how do you lean back into your experience and expertise in this new, very important, very leadership role that you now have?
Ahava, I've always been fascinated with the beauty and richness of ordinary people in extraordinary situations, right? Those are the best newspaper stories. Those are the best like PR stories. And I feel like our marketing reflects that. We've got nurses in our current marketing. We've got a volunteer coordinator walking on the beach. We've got a real patient with an orthopedic situation. Like, I think we're just storytellers trying to tell very practical situations that anybody can relate to.
I agree. Do you know Save the Cat writes a novel and Save the Cat writes a
No, no, I
screenplay?
need
Okay.
to.
So these are famous texts within Hollywood that talk about how like there's seven plots in Hollywood. And then so the person who wrote that or she took that idea and she wrote one for
Right.
Save the Cat writes a novel. And she always talks about how in a story, no matter what kind of hero you have, they have to save a cat very quickly at the beginning or like do something for other people
Yeah.
because that
Well,
hooks you
that's
into a
comfort.
hero.
Oh,
And
I
I
like
think
that.
Americans are genuinely obsessed with the hero myth. And that's what you tapped into. You tapped into this idea of like ordinary people are heroes, helping people get better, finding the right care,
Yeah.
being a part of a brand.
Yeah.
It's genius. And I don't know that somebody who wasn't a journalist and wasn't a comms person would have been brave enough to go with the humanity behind
Well, thanks.
the
That's so
healthcare.
nice of you. It's so funny, like how our consumers are even a social media photo on Instagram. I'm always amazed that we have good equipment and we'll take a gorgeous photo that's just like looks so spectacular. And then we'll also have an Instagram post, say, of a nurse and maybe take them with an iPhone. And maybe the photo's a little fuzzy. And how fantastic the traction gets. The vertical, like real life, authentic, doesn't look over polished content sometimes always wins. That's a little bit of like a rabbit trail, but
No,
just,
I agree with you. Gritty works. I mean,
yeah,
I think in we're in a post-COVID world. We're in a messy geopolitical situation. People don't want to be lied to. They want authenticity. And there's
yeah,
something about an iPhone candid that really feels special. That doesn't mean there's not room for polished either. You're not going to put an iPhone photo on a bus. I mean, although the iPhone does take a beautiful picture, but it makes
it does.
sense what you're saying. And I think
Yeah.
there's room in marketing for both. But I think helping executives understand that is really the critical piece. I've heard you say something that I love.
Okay.
You say, and this is a nice segue into this, it has to look amazing, but it needs to function.
Right.
So I know, redesigning a website is a fun exercise for anyone, but
Oh, my word.
how did you balance that strong brand experience and looking amazing with
Yeah.
making sure that it was really functional for your patients, for your staff to feel like, okay, I'm proud of the way that this looks, but actually I'm way more proud of the way that it works.
Yeah, so our brand new rsfh.com for Roper St. Francis Healthcare will debut in August. And it's just like Krista Robertson just does such magnificent work. And there's about three things that I think are so clutch to what you're talking about, like looking gorgeous, functioning. And it's those knowing that the patient came here for a reason and it's giving them the easy buttons to get through the door, right? And whether that's like on every single page, a call to action, a way to schedule an appointment, a way to get the information, a way to get inside and to get our care. And it just has to be repeated over and over again. Just assuming that like maybe that's the only page they're going to see. So make it as easy as
Yeah.
possible. Marketing campaign, it's that I think that the website, I hope that everyone sees it just dripping with our authentic mission and purpose in this community. And we're constantly telling our story and the good that we're doing for people and
Yeah.
and how we're a community leader and those like there's no stock photos, they're just us. They're our
Yeah.
patients, they're our teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it
Yeah.
really it comes off real.
One of the things I always talk about with my own staff is that when Bill Clinton was running against George H.W. Bush,
Yeah.
he was he was considered the underdog. Like nobody thought he was going to win. And James Carville ran his campaign, and he wrote on an 8.5 by 11 piece of white paper, "It's the economy,
It's
stupid,"
the
and he
economy,
hung it
stupid.
up in the war room.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I always talk about is when we're talking about website redesigns, when we're talking about content, there needs to be a North Star document, and it can't have more than 3 things on it because
Right.
nobody can keep more than 3 things in their head. Did you create a North Star document like that, either documented or in your own head? And did you communicate it constantly? Or was it just very clear to everybody, which I find hard to believe because I find that it doesn't, it starts off clear and then it gets muddied by politics and by design constraints, by budget constraints. Did you create something like that?
Yes, we have those documents. I think it's the senior leader kind of buy-in. It's from the very early phases, from like, this is what we want it to look like, to like, this is how we want it to function. And it's like pulling them in along the way, the people that know, that have heard the feedback from the physicians over and over again on how it's difficult for a patient to find out how to actually get the care. It's nice that they read the story, but they're still struggling to make an appointment. And
Right.
so I think that like one thing that was hammered into our heads is that like, are we making this easy enough for the patient? Every single time that we were kind of bringing people along the way, we wanted that feedback during the planning process, not in August. I
Yeah.
just think that buy-in, like, tell me what is the difficult news now, months at a time, than like after we go live or like the month beforehand.
Right. So it was make it easy for the patients. That
Make
was,
it
it's your
easy
economy. Yeah.
for the patient.
Okay, so let me go into that. So I've heard this story. We've participated probably in
Yeah.
more than 150 website redesigns. I've been doing it for 20 years. But my question to you is, a lot of people talk about this roadshow that they do, and
Mm.
then they do a roadshow, and then they don't check in the middle, and they don't check in 3/4 of the way through. And what you're describing sounds like you kept the roadshow going.
Yeah.
Is that
But
true?
we're working with the individual service line leaders, doctors, to develop the copy for their own site. They're
Yeah.
not going to be surprised by what's said on their page
Right.
because they're co-authoring.
Right. That's what we do. We do subject matter expert interviews so that they
Yeah.
feel like they have buy-in to their
And
own
then they're
content.
reviewing it too.
Right. We do that too.
Yeah.
But we do that because of errors and omissions.
Yeah. Right. Right. There's just like, there's just the autonomy scary sometimes.
Yeah.
I'd rather like bring everybody along.
No, I think that's interesting. I think it's, like I said, and for the people watching here who are either contemplating a big website redesign or thinking about it right now, like they're in the middle of it. One of the things that we talk about if something goes wrong is, when did you stop communicating? Because
Yes.
it's often at that moment that the problems start to develop without you even realizing it. And then you say, well, we had stakeholder buy-in. Well, stakeholder buy-in, 12 months ago is not stakeholder buy-in now. And I think it's
Man,
interesting that
I
you
think
kept those
when did we,
conversations going.
Ahava, I want to write on a sticky note and put it on my monitor, like, have I stopped communicating? Because I think that that's probably like, it's not just website redesign, it's crisis communication. It's like trying to get a new hospital off the ground or a new service. Like, when did we stop bringing the subject matter experts along? That extra step just saves you in the end. I love
It
that.
really does. It really does. And they're going to complain anyway. Like that's one of the things I talk about. I had a mentor who once told me, not expecting doctors to complain is like expecting to have children and not tell them to pick up their shoes. Like it's just hard. It's not a bug, it's a feature. And so, but can you minimize the complaints, or can you document enough to go back to them and say, well, here's why we made the decision that we made. And on July 1, 2026, we had a meeting with you and we talked about that. And that's what I'm excited about with AI,
Yeah.
because I think that AI can help us do more of that documentation and
Oh, it's so
remembering.
good. It's
So
so good at
that's
just
what it's so helpful for. Yeah.
it's so good on organizing the
Yeah.
notes, keeping
Yeah.
that so that everyone's refreshed and remembered what we discussed. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So we started off with a positive, and
Yeah.
what are you excited about in healthcare marketing?
Yeah.
What keeps you up at night?
Um, do they see the marketing and know that it's us?
Talk more about that.
Is the logo big enough on the billboard? Like that sort of thing. like that. Like I just
Meaning,
want
meaning not your internal teams, but do the people that you're
the
marketing
people know.
to
Yeah. Yeah. We NRC looked at our they got NRC, of course, being, one of the leading companies that
research? Yeah,
market
yeah.
research and tell you whether your marketing's working. And they did a focus group on with 100 people in our area, and 98% correctly identified after seeing our ad that it was Roper St. Francis Healthcare. So that's a win, right? But it was really funny when we came up with the slogan for a life lived here and the concept, and I kind of did like a Don Draper style pitch to our CEO and our chief clinical officer, chief operating officer, and they liked it, right?
Did you use
And
the Kodak
yeah,
uh,
like I used
carousel?
Don Draper as like, this is like, think of this as Mad Men. I'm going to give you my best pitch, and I want you to I want to pull on the heartstrings. It's a comms guy talking about marketing, right? And we showed to him, and Joseph, our CEO, said, like, I like for life lived here, but like measure it. Like, I want to know, is it working? And so after the first month, we got that NRC data back, and like 98% said that it was like 9 out of 10 said that they correctly identified the message. They understood that it was us. It actually moved the needle in perception and recall on several different elements. Like it was working with that focus group. So that was encouraging. They said that it looked like me, basically.
It
Like
looked like
the
me. I could see
representation.
myself there.
I
Yes.
like that they sell
Yeah.
themselves.
It's
Um,
one of the things we talk about with content a lot. Like I talk about how when somebody lands on a page, they have to understand that we wrote this for them.
yeah,
They have to feel like I belong here. This is the right piece of content for me with what I'm going through. Even if it's just like you said, make an appointment, pay a bill. I have to come in and feel like they were thinking about me when
yeah.
they did this. And that's what you're describing, I think. I belong here.
Yeah. The one thing that's been a learning curve for me, like brand campaigns it's tough, right? They cost money, and it's tough to like come back with ROI. Like there's no number out there that says this many people drove by on Interstate 26, saw the billboard, and then went in to get a colonoscopy. Like I just don't know that I can prove that, right?
Yeah.
But we've got to hold ourselves accountable. And senior leaders, they want to see measurement and that it's working. So we did offer a landing page. It's not been a hard push, but we are getting significant traction on the landing page. We're happy. It's matching our goals on where we want to go. And they were unique visitors, people who hadn't visited our website
Right.
before. So you gotta I'm learning this as I go. It's so important to like come up with a few like those ROIs, those metrics, KPIs, and and use them consistently, and keep your team, your senior leaders involved, and show that it's doing what we intended.
I always talk about brand as, if you could learn to measure the ROI of brand, you would make billions of dollars.
Oh,
Because it is exactly what you're saying. However, one of the things I always tell this story about with brand is, when I was younger, I used to look at all the magazines, and there would always be an ad for Maybelline mascara. And I never thought about using it, even though all the celebrities said that pink and green tube is the best mascara. And one day and I usually would buy my mascara at like Clinique because I have sensitive eyes and all that stuff. And then one day, and I needed more and I couldn't get to the mall, and I was in a CVS and I looked over and I was like, girl, there's a lot of mascaras there. Like, go pick yourself up one. And I found a Maybelline Sensitive Lash, and I bought that. And I thought to myself, and that's brand right there. I had to be exposed to it a lot of times before it sunk in. And I think that healthcare is complicated because it's the thing that nobody wants to have, but when they need it yesterday.
yeah.
And so it is very hard to measure it. But the fact that you're getting people to the landing page, the fact that the NRC results are coming back, like that is the ROI that you can show them and say, executives care about one thing. Are the numbers at the bottom of the spreadsheet round and green?
Yeah. And that's exactly right, Ahava. And the other thing that I've kind of learned along the way is that it's It's so simple. It's not just the brand campaign. It's everything, right?
Yes.
So when I had to talk multiple times, like on my own road show, I'm trying to end the presentation with like, I do not want to paint myself as the brand guy. I don't want you to think that like, I do not want to tell a narrative that like we hadn't done a brand campaign in several years, but we weren't marketing, because we most definitely have been marketing, right?
Yeah.
And then I've actually, like, after I talk about brand, I'm talking about our service line digital marketing and how we're sending things when people search and they have a problem with themselves that they need fixed health wise, and how we're successfully sending them digital ads and how that's working. And I want to talk about a new mover campaign and a PR strategy, because in the end, it's just so many tools in the toolbox. There's just not one special tool that's going to be a solve all.
Yeah.
The brand is fun and it is working, but it's not like we haven't been marketing before.
Yeah. One of the things I always would say to doctors is, in the same way that you practice evidence-based medicine, we practice evidence-based marketing. And so let me show you the thought leadership behind why we're doing what we're doing. Let me show you the measurement that the experts say you should use and that studies have reinforced. And then let me show you your measurements.
Oh, I
And
like
it's
that.
really hard for them to argue with that, because then you call into question the entire way that they practice. And I always say to them, when you're listening to a patient, you're not just thinking about the New England Journal of Medicine article you just read. It's an art form also, what you do as a healer. And it's the same thing for marketers. And I find that when you really talk to them in their own language, like anyone, they think to themselves, okay, I belong with this person because she actually really gets me and she gets what I'm trying to get at. And I find that when you say that to them in the same way you practice evidence-based medicine, I practice evidence-based marketing, it's like, that's when the conversation starts.
Yeah.
Thanks to our viewers for joining in. I hope you got the answer that you needed today. If you have a burning question, put it in the comments or email it to ahava.leaptag@ahamediagroup.com. You can find Andy on LinkedIn. Andy, thank you so much for being here
Thank
today.
you, Ahava. It's my honor to be here.